Hey, what's good? Your boy No Love just hitting you once again on another one of these reviews and reflections. This time was looking to do a little bit something different on my storytelling for you. A lot of you know me for storytelling on Instagram or Tumblr or whatever media you followed me on for years. But yeah, I was looking to do a little bit something different on this one. So today I want to take you back into a story as I have for many years in my writings. I want to read you an article and present a side of a story we don't really hear about too much these days. It's a story that's about 3 generations deep and one that's familiar in barrios across the country. Today's article, I want to take you back to about the 70s and 80s where a young homie named Ruben, Sonny Arredondo, lived his life as a young vato from Corcoran, California. Corcoran, California is one of the smallest towns I've ever been to in my years of traveling barrio to barrio in the country. It's also one of my favorites too. It's a cool ass little town, population just over 23,000 people. It's a town where a lot of the residents are related, a lot of the residents have known each other, a lot of the residents have hated each other for years. So it's one of those towns where everybody's at the Friday night football game or everybody's on Main Street when the parade's going down. As I knew it, it was a place where myself and rappers like Tito B, Lil Coner, DRF, and a gang of others would stop by to head to Royal Music, sell CDs, drop off posters, do some promoting, maybe run into a few fans over there, go deal with Roy at Royal Music. It was like the stop when you were in Corcoran, that's where you went. As many others know it, it's a location for Corcoran State Prison, former home to the world-famous inmates like Richard Night Stalker Ramirez and Charles Manson, just to name a few. This is the town Sonny would live in before losing his life in Tracy, California State Prison in 1981 at the age of 24 during a brutal stabbing, one that occurred after being in prison for less than a month. Now, I want to make it clear, I don't condemn nor do I condone anything in this story. I'm just reading you an article that I've talked about with my boy Sonny Boy Lokzter for years. This is a story that's affected his family, his generations, and it's more than just an article. It's more than just ink on paper, and it's one that he approved of for me to tell. So that's why I'm bringing it to you today. I don't want to try to glorify any gang violence or brutalities of prison that are a daily reality to so many, but I want to show you from the side of a kid who lost his dad at an early age. So with that said, let me begin by reading you this article. Bitter gang rivalry between northern and southern Mexican Americans erupted Friday into knife fights that left 1 prisoner dead and 2 wounded at Dual Vocational Institute near here. The dead inmate, Ruben Arredondo, 24, was serving a burglary sentence from Kings County. The 2 wounded prisoners also were Northern Californians, DVI officials said. Their names were withheld pending notification of relatives. It was the 2nd inmate killing so far this year at the severely overcrowded state prison. Prison officials, fearing a retaliation as a result of Friday's knifing, ordered an immediate lockdown of all Mexican Americans at the general population wings of DVI. There are 361 Mexican Americans in the general population section, prison officials said. All were locked in their cells because there is no way to determine who belongs to which rival gang. The lockdown will probably stay in effect throughout the weekend, according to prison spokesman Cliff Reed. Friday's violence took place in the prison's J and C wing when prisoners were being released for lunch, Reed said. At 11:30 a.m., an estimated 15 prisoners on the first tier of J wing were walking to lunch. 2 cellmates were attacked by knife-wielding assailants, Reed said. Arredondo was knifed in the throat but managed to walk part of the way to the prison infirmary where he died. His cellmate was stabbed twice in the back, but the wounds were minor, Reed said. Prison guards took 1 suspect into custody for questioning, Reed said. Officials declined to identify him. 15 minutes after the first attack, a group of inmates in C Wing attacked another prisoner who suffered multiple stab wounds in his abdomen. He was taken to San Joaquin General Hospital and French Camp, where hospital officials said late Friday he was in serious condition. Reed said 2 suspects in the second attack were apprehended, but they were not identified either. Prison guards found 8 prison-made knives in the search following the attacks. 3 knives were found outside of the north window of J Wing. 4 were lying outside windows in C Wing, and another was on the floor in C Wing, Reed said. Friday's melee was the 2nd straight day of violence at the prison. At about 7 p.m. Thursday, Lafayette Cade, 26, a black inmate serving time for robbery in Los Angeles, was stabbed in the chest by an unknown attacker while showering. Cade was listed in good condition Friday at San Joaquin County General Hospital. DVI's first slaying this year occurred on January 11th where 7 or 8 inmates knifed Arturo Lozoya 30 to death in West Hall. West Hall is the segregated wing that houses suspected members of the Nuestra Familia prison gang. DVI's head count of prisoners Friday stood at 1,800, some 277 more than the number of cells. In February, DVI Superintendent Robert Rees warned that if overcrowding gets worse, it could lead to violence. Yeah, so that was a crazy article right there, one that kind of takes you back in time and puts you in the perspective of, what it was back then. A lot of violence in prison, a lot of race wars, gangs, like it was going down. I used to hear the stories from the OGs too, read a lot of those articles. So this one just put you back in that place. And this was in 1981, so early 80s this was going down right here. It's one of those things that this just happened. This was one of the prisons in California where this was happening in all the prisons. So this is one story for many people, This is what it came from, and these are the history, these are the roots, and this is a lot of shit that a lot of family members, kids, wives, girlfriends, mothers, fathers, they've all been victim to this stuff as well as their loved ones that are in prison. So just want to put that out there. And Sonny, he was one of those guys that he was born on April 3rd, 1957. Sonny was a guy that was well known, liked in his town, according to what I heard. Sonny was also known to be a ladies' man around town. He was a lowrider who owned a lifted Grand Prix that cruised the main street of Corcoran, as well as a trucker who drove the California highways hauling loads before his life would come to a violent and bloody end. He ran the streets banging Corco Norte in the 70s until his life would end in 1981. At 16 years old, Sonny would go to YA for punching a cop. He would do time at Preston in the late 70s, and at 18 years old, he was back out on the streets. While on the streets, Sonny was known to pull a 211 California Penal Code for robbery, an act that would send him to prison for the last year of his life. After getting locked up, he would escape from Tulare County Road Camp knowing he was facing prison time. Once on the bus, he was sent to Tehachapi, while inside he wrote letters to his wife and 2 sons, Adrian and Ruben, or as many would know him in his adult life, Sonny Boy Lokzter. Sonny Boy stated that he remembers his mom reading him those letters, he remembers hearing about his father, and he remembers him from those early years. Unfortunately, the 2 young boys would never get to see their father again. During Sonny's stay in prison, he would see some family members and started kicking it early. Later down the line, his family member would see him and tell him he was kicking it with some serious people. He just looked, smiled, and said he knew what he was doing. That was the last time they would see each other. It was during this time violence was erupting at Dual Prison in Tracy, California. Sonny heard bodies were needed and he volunteered to go to Tracy with only a year left to serve for robbery. He figured he'd be home soon. After hitting Dual, Sonny would be there less than a month before being killed on J Wing Yard. Him and his cellie would hit the yard and notice there were the only 2 there. For some reason, none of their people were on the yard. They were rushed and stabbed multiple times as all exits were sealed off. Sonny's cellmate was stabbed in the neck and Sonny got the worst of it. He was stabbed numerous times in the chest and neck, fatal blows that would leave him just enough energy to make it to the infirmary before dying. Years down the road, Sonny Boy Lokzter would get in contact with his father's old cellie and confirm all these last moments of his father's life. After the incident happened, Sonny's wife would be notified by the local sheriff who showed up to inform her. During her trips to the prison after Sonny's death, his wife would feel the tension from prison beef as she would be mean-mugged by other prisoners' wives. Sonny was later buried in Corcoran District Cemetery in 1981. To this day, his death remains an unsolved mystery. Over the years, Sonny and his brother would grow to run the streets of Corcoran just like their father. Sonny would be no stranger to gangbanging in the small town of Corco, but did not let his surroundings stop him from becoming a rapper who would sell CDs to customers across the globe. He became Corcoran's most well-known rapper and would collab with popular rapper Criminal early in their careers. I had the pleasure of meeting him early in my career from buying CDs for homeboyrap.com, and we've been homies ever since. I've always called him when I was in Corcoran. As an adult, Sonny Boy would return to his roots and continue the family legacy of trucking, a legacy just as ingrained into their blood as lowriding. Sonny would grow to become a proud father with sons and daughters of his own, but in a small town with only so many spots on the local teams, the streets continue to call for what it thinks is rightfully theirs. As it stands, Sonny's oldest boy, Ruben, is hoping to be home by 2023 due to being incarcerated. The reality is something that many in the barrios across the country deal with on a daily basis. Generations of raza knowing the California prison system from end to end, from the first nervous day in a prison to release dates to the signature of a family member for the release of your body. It's one of those sad realities we've been trying to shake for generations. A reality with many lit candles and long drives for visits. So many prayers have gone into these realities. To this day, Corcoran still has a big gang problem, one that has left several murders and shootings in the past year. In a small town with a handful of stoplights, this is a big issue. Whether Corcoran's gang problem is generational or due to a lack of activities for kids, I don't know. What I do know is that many small towns with big populations of Latinos that I have been to have this same problem, sometimes dating back decades. You can only wonder why we haven't figured it out. Maybe this newer, less violent generation has an answer for us. Only time will tell. Make sure you say a prayer for the Arredondo family, and much love for listening to this article. You know, this is one of those things that, like I said, it takes you back in time. It puts shit into perspective, and it makes you think, like, yeah, me and my family did go through those things in the 2000s or the 90s or 80s or 70s or whenever it was your people were going through these things. Like, this is generational shit that a lot of us have dealt with. We knew what PFN numbers and, you know, what searches look like and metal detectors and all that shit before we were 10. You know, a lot of us, we had to deal with these. We had to write letters to our family members. So this is one of those things that it hits home for a lot of people, and I hope a lot of you hear this story and you don't think that it's a glorification of violence or gangs or anything like that, or my side took out your side or anything. This is a reality, and it happens all across the country. It happens in big cities, little barrios. I mean, big cities of 1 million, barrios less than 1,000 people. Like, this shit is the same story. The only thing that changes is the color of the people, the name of the people, the name of the gang, and sometimes just the color of the bandana. It's all pretty much the same. But yeah, I just wanted to present this to you and let you know that, hey, you know, before you're making a choice on making that lifetime commitment to a crime or thinking that doing hood shit is the way to go, like, man, this is the reality of it, and this is what's waiting for you. You can go to prison for 1 to 2 years and not make it home, you know, and the only thing people are going to get to remember you by is some pictures and maybe, you know, a couple letters that you wrote. But this is it right here. You know, I just want to put this out there and hope you guys just think twice, and, you know, maybe you'll find another path. But before you think about, you know, making that commitment, this is what it is out there in the streets. So if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to hear a story like this and say, shit, I could still push through, then by all means, do what you got to do. But if you hear this story and you think, man, maybe I don't want to live like that, maybe I don't want my kids or my grandkids to go through that, 3 generations of us, then, you know, think twice. But I appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Much love out there.